Hello, legend, super legend, Elder here. Welcome to Veloharmony. Today I want to address a couple of requests that I got from two new legends. I went ahead and moved them a little up the queue because the request that I got from super legend Russell Baker required a special prop that is in the queue and it will be here in a few days, and once it gets here, I'll do that. The one about gear inches. I did the research, and it's to truly do that request justice, I needed something that would be more of a classroom setting. So bear with me, super legend. You're in the queue, and as soon as that prop gets here, we'll take care of that, and I think it will be a very good topic for everybody. And also, I want to shout out to CV Rivera, our newest super legend. I want to thank you for supporting the channel, and I appreciate your generosity. Those of you who like the content, visit us on patreon.com/Veloharmony and pledge and support the channel to keep the content flowing. Become a super legend, become a VIP. It moves you up the queue with your requests. The two guys I want to address here are not VIPs yet, but I have a feeling they will be because they are true diehards. Their requests were very interesting. They were similar, so I'm going to combine them, and I think you will see why. So let me read. Let's see. This is Carl Rusko. Hope I pronounced that correctly, Carl. He says, I started cycling 6 months ago, and I have seen an improvement, but I would like to hear how you went about improving your cardio health through cycling. So I decided to combine it with our new legend here, Lawor 8, Lawor 8. He said, new viewer here, can you explain the difference in training for road racing, crits, and training for endurance riding, like 100, 200 miles, please? Then he said, as an older cyclist, I don't have the need for speed, and I find pleasure in riding centuries. So when I saw that, I kind of chuckled, and I decided I was going to combine those. There was another request also here where I may have to do separately because they wanted more specific differences between crits and so forth. But I decided to combine those because I'm going to start with Lawor 8 first. I mean, he says I'm an older cyclist, right? Lawor, we're all old. Nobody ever asks anyone, how young are you? So don't worry about the numbers. This is a lifetime sport. It doesn't matter when you join cycling. You can do this forever. It's not like running that really beats you up. Now, I'm assuming that you found this channel, you understand the significance of fit. You see up there on my banner, it all begins with fit. If the bike doesn't fit you very well, you're not going to have a lot of fun. You're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to want to ride a lot. So start with that. Get a good fit so you can ride for life with no pain, with no issues. Okay. The second thing I want to address is, what are you training for? Centuries or crits? Or like you said, you don't have a need for speed? I think you need speed. And here's where I put it. Let's assume you want to train for long rides, like you said, centuries, okay? Just because you're training for, say, 100 miles, or which is about 160 kilometers or something like that, doesn't mean that you don't need to learn how to go fast. I'm not saying go and do anaerobic sprints or whatever, okay? What I'm saying is the basic rules apply. Keep your cadence high, regardless of whether you're training for crits or endurance cycling, like long rides, double centuries, whatever. Keep your cadence high, especially for double centuries. You keep your cadence high so that you don't stress your muscles, and you save that for late in the ride. But to say that you don't need speed, when you're riding your bike, there's always a need to make that light, or you may need to get out of a situation to where there's a driver doing something funny and you want to go quickly to get out of there. You always want to be able to go faster than your cruising speed. So yes, there is a need to learn how to go fast. And I have a video that talks about to go fast, you must first go slow. So the training you're doing for centuries, as you condition yourself more, your speed will increase. Because when you ride frequently, which is what you need to do for centuries, you don't need to kill yourself. If you're training for 100 miles, you need to be able to at least do half of that, which is 50, comfortably. But then you want to try to do that same distance faster the next time. And then you want to try to get close to that 100 miles, so like 70, 75 miles. But you don't need to do it slowly. So you don't want to go your first week and do 100 miles if you've been doing 25 miles a day or less, or let's say the whole week you've been riding 100 miles for the whole week. You want to increase your mileage by about 10% each week, okay? And that's being conservative. With cycling, you can go more, but just be careful, pay attention to how you feel. The reason being is that you're training for 100 miles, and let's say you've been doing 50 miles a week, and you want to do a century. Give yourself at least 4 to 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks is better. I like that. That's a macro cycle. 6 weeks is better. So give yourself 6 weeks to prepare. In those 6 weeks, you have to gradually each week increase the total mileage you're doing for each ride and each week, because that will happen. So you go up 10% at a time, and you increase that every week. So if the first week on Monday you were doing 15 miles, maybe you go up from 15 and you add like another 10% of 15, okay? So I would say go from 15, go to about another 5 miles, 20 miles. And if you feel better, go 25. You want to keep increasing the wear. By the time you're within 2 weeks of the event, you can take a day where you do at least 3/4 or half of that mileage or time, the time you think it's going to take you. I do most of my training by time, because if you train alone, time is more important. Now, the reason why time is important is when you go to these events, you may decide, if you ride in a group, you may decide to follow a group, you will travel faster. But when you're traveling alone, the wind will slow you down, your average speed is lower, so you will cover less ground, but you'll still be working, because your body only cares about the effort you do. It doesn't care how far you go. So as you ride, you want to make sure that you're not going slower than the day before, unless you're taking an easy day. You should be pushing yourself. I don't mean going and doing sprints. What I mean is, if you're normally riding at 13 miles an hour, once you've recovered, you want to start trying to increase that speed to 15, 16, whatever, because as you ride consistently, it should be easier for you to go harder. And I don't like to do things by speed. I do it out of a heart rate of power, so that you focus on that, because the conditions control that. So don't say you don't need speed. There is always a need to be able to go quickly if you need to, or quicker than you normally cruise. And I think I know what you meant. You don't need to go and do high intensity intervals like for racing. But when you start to do the training that requires for these long rides, as you get fitter, you would normally start going faster. So you will get speed, because going slowly makes you fast. Now, I want to divert this for the crit training. If you're training for criteriums, the endurance that you train for in a long ride, let's say even for road racing, say a 50-mile ride or even a century, a road racer's endurance in criteriums is baggage. You don't need it. If all you're training for are crits, it doesn't matter what kind of riding you've been doing. Your 6 weeks block for that crit, as you're preparing for the crit, needs to focus on high intensity intervals. And that's the contrast, the complete opposite of what Lauer It is saying. Lauer It doesn't need to train for crits. So he needs to do the long, steady rides, not long, slow, long, steady. You still got to push yourself. So if you've been riding with Lauer 8, for example, you guys train for his century together, and he goes and he does his century, and now your crit is coming up. You don't ride the 6 week like he did leading up to your crit at his effort level. You stop doing the long rides with him, and you start doing short 15, 30 second, 45 second balls out intervals. You don't need endurance in a criterium. You need speed. So I'm talking about balls out, 30 seconds, recover, then do it again. And you need to do as many as possible. Start with 10, get up to as many as 20 or even more. Because in a criterium, that's all you're going to be doing. You're going to be accelerating, getting to a corner, take the corner, go back up to speed, just attack, attack, attack. If you don't train your body for those short, intense intervals, you won't be able to keep up in a crit because your body will not know how to go at threshold and above and recover quickly so you can do it again. So that I'm talking about hard, short rest, hard, repeated 25 times or more. That's how you train for crits. It's completely different than the kind of riding we do. Now, in road racing, we do the same kind of training for crits. We don't do as many because we need to go far. A crit may be 30 minutes to an hour. A road race may be 3 hours or more. So if all you did was train for crits and you go do a road race, you will get dropped because you won't have the endurance to last. And if you can't last, you won't be there when it's time to go fast. Okay? So that's the best way I can put it. You train, the same kind of training for centuries is like base training for road racing. Steady, steady. And each week, that steady pace goes up, up, up. But it's still steady. So lower 8, you will still be getting faster because your body will adapt. And you will naturally not want to do the same speed. You will be pushing yourself a little more. So don't say you don't need speed. You don't need high intensity intervals like the criterium guys. But you need, you will get faster so you keep your cadence up. And the same thing with the criterium guy. When you're training for those crit intervals, you're going to be on a flat because it's going to be mostly flat. Criteriums are rarely held in the hills. So you're training high intensity intervals, high cadence. So all your intervals need to be 105 or to 110 or more. Every time you go, it needs to be leg speed, explosive power. Because if you don't have that and you can't spin, your legs will die if you try to push a big gear and you will be gapped like the grinders I talked about in the other video. So for crits, you got to have high cadence and be able to handle high threshold or above. You have to go over your red line and teach your body to recover and process that lactate. So you have to have done enough preparation before you start training for criterium to have the highways to where these intervals will be fast. If you're out of shape and you just go train for intervals, you won't go very far. You won't go very long. So you see how everything connects. You still got to do base, but then when the race is coming up within a month or so, you reduce your mileage and start doing the intensity. And you don't want to go longer than an hour because for a crit, that's all you need. So the cool thing about crits is you can do it in a short period of time when you're preparing for that. But you must have done the base training to make those speed intervals worth something. That means if you don't do the base training, your speed interval will not be intense. That means the guy who did the base training, when he goes hard, he might be in 30-something miles an hour while you're doing 25. You dropped already because your interval is so low because you did not do the base training to build like Lauer 8 did for his endurance long ride. So you got to build with him like the same kind of training, and then you branch off from him and stop riding long and start doing intensity and using those highways that you built. So that's the best way I can put it. So all of it kind of connects. You know, you build and then you focus and you specify. It's the same thing. If you're training for a hill climb, you still got to do endurance training so that when you climb, you can generate some speed. But then when your event is coming, you start doing more climbs. And then if the event is long, you still got to do endurance and then go to an area out of where there are climbs or ride into the wind like the guys in the Netherlands do. You know, you don't need hills to train for hills. You need to train resistance. You can train for hills on a trainer. You put enough resistance and get a rhythm. That's what it is. And you will be ready for the hills. A lot of people live in the flatlands of the Netherlands, go to the Tour de France, Ralph Sorensen and these guys, and they win. You know, they don't have any hills there. But, you know, like here in Houston, I spent an hour and a half riding into the wind. I can go ride with anybody in the hills. I don't have any very long hills. We got a few where we go out to. It might be maybe a mile or so, but we have wind here. Serious wind, and that's what you do. So I wanted to stress that. I hope I covered enough of it, but the bottom line is I'll summarize. For all kind of cycling, you need base training, like you train for centuries and double centuries. The only difference with the base training for those things are that you're going to be increasing the mileage. If you're training for double centuries, You got to go longer than when you train for centuries. You need to be able to do at least half that distance. And then when you do the event, start out slowly. Don't get excited. Don't go start with too fast a group. Save your glycogen. Start out slowly so your body burns fat, and save it for later in the ride when you will pass all the people who started very early. So endurance riders, road racers, everybody does those base training. Then they branch off at the fork in the road. The road racers continue to do their endurance training, and they put in some intervals because they still need the endurance. Criterium guys are like, no more long rides. We've already got our base. We're just going to do intensity, high cadence stuff because we're not climbing. Road racer got to do what the criterium guy does, but they also got to add in the hill training because they're going to have hills and they got to keep their endurance. The criterium guy doesn't care about endurance. He wants leg speed, high intensity balls out training. Lots of them, 25 to 50 if possible, because the whole hour, that's all you're going to be doing. Whereas the road racers, they have lulls. Since the ride is 3 to 5 hours, 3+ hours, they have lulls in the thing. So I just wanted to stress that. So I hope that I covered this enough to where it addressed the concern of those two. And I want to go ahead and stop there and let you know that no matter what, get out there, get the miles in.